Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast. This is a community aimed at understanding all sides of mental health, addiction, and homelessness. Each interview will include either a personal story or an expert's advice within one of these fields. The goal of this project is to promote awareness, guidance, and support for anyone who is affected by these challenges. Thank you all for listening. Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast. This is your host, Brennan Catuli. We are here today for Season 2, Episode 4 with Anthony Ogley. Anthony is a transformational coach for inspirational people seeking to reach that next level. Anthony pushes his clients past their mind's 40% capacity and brings them to their full potential. Anyone seeking Anthony's knowledge can expect to tap into a higher cognitive level. Anthony provides a new perspective of mental health by focusing on the theory of mental architecture. Anthony joins the Mental Insights podcast to speak about how to upgrade your mental software and why mental architecture will be used in the future instead of mental health. Anthony, thank you for taking this time out with me to be on the Mental Insights podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's great to be here, Brendan. Thank you very much for inviting me.
This is certainly a topic that I was super intrigued to, make this next step. Within a few months ago, we had our first conversation, and it really intrigued me, your perspective on the way mental health will develop. To really start within this first part of the conversation that we will have, we're going to focus on how to upgrade your mental software, what you're able to do with yourself and the clients that you work with. To really start off, within this mental software conversation, where are people really lacking within the mental software today?
So I mean, third thing in terms of that is I think our basic understanding of what it means. So like we have a limited understanding of what mental health is and what we're capable of. And so we tend to look at it from this like cognitive point of view and also if I say to you mental health, the first words that come out of that usually to my mind are like problem or issue, right?
Definitely.
And so we have, like much of the medical industry, we have a focus on dis-ease and of solving problems and trying to fix like what's broken about our bodies, our health, our mental capacity. Now, it's true that through our conditioning, our what you might call our ego, or certain patterns that we have running that we've been programmed into, usually by society, that we tend to those views of ourselves and views of the world tend to create what we might call anxiety, stress. Sometimes people have large amounts of guilt or shame programmed into them, and then we often don't realize that these programs that are running are programs that are running rather than definitive statements about who we are or what we're actually capable of.
Interesting. I love that perspective because what you're saying is, when we look at mental health, it's always looking at what is the problem and, what's kind of the root. Whereas there are many aspects of just upgrading yourself, of improving that mental software, that capacity that we have. And within many people who don't have one of those issues or challenges, it can arise for a new perspective. And this term can provide that outlet for what is possible within the future and kind of what is within our brain here. So how impactful could a small shift within your lifestyle or within your kind of mindset and belief system, how can that impact your mental software?
So what I believe is that one tiny insight, one realization can shift the entire trajectory of your life. And that's all it takes to instigate process of transformation or a shift and an upgrade. Now, it may take time to fully integrate and implement everything that you need to do, but it can be actually really, really simple. So, for example, when I've had clients, they come to me looking for shifts in performance. They're looking to, grow their companies, grow their businesses, grow themselves. And then often when you get into it, it can turn out, well, actually, someone is suffering from you might call bipolar, or someone is suffering from clinical depression, or they're suffering from suicidal thoughts. And when you look to go to the core of what's causing that at an internal level, right? And B, look to go to a place of what we call the 21st century capacities of leadership, which are joy, presence, love, compassion, the ability to come together with achievement and getting things done, and a high level of state of mind that is what you might call in flow, or in connection with oneself, or in tune with the universe. If that sounds a little kind of wafty and spiritual, but people who enter into flow states, into high performance states, this is effectively what they describe time and time again. Time slows down. They have more capacity, more ability. They can take in more information. They can see more of what's going on. They tend to be more connected with their breathing. So we're bringing together the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and every other aspect of what it means to be a free and fully functioning human.
You need every component in order to reach that level, and I think that's where some people do get mistaken today, is lacking in one of those departments, and that can be that major shift in being a regular worker to a high performance leader. And that small shift, as you're saying, can take you to that next step, and it's something small that can get overlooked, or something that may not seem as a priority within someone's lifestyle.
Totally. And also, we are we're living within a cultural reference frame at the moment where there's a lot of things like you're not special, you're not anything, and get over it, etc., etc. But the truth is that we're all capable of being high performers. We all have the ability to tap into our genius, to go beyond our perceived limits, and to create our sort of our impossible, or our greatest what you might call the greatest creative vision that lies within our hearts. So again, one of the issues that leads to mental health challenges or blocks is the fact that we're living out of integrity with our truth, with our true vision, with the life that we really love to create for ourselves. Or we simply don't believe it's possible. We've been told that we can't do it. And all of that is like a layer of dirt that covers over our true self. And that's, gets in the way of us tapping into that potential. And that can happen at any level. There's people who I've worked with who are, millionaires, who are stressed out and depressed, and and then there's people who we would call ordinary people doing ordinary jobs, who are completely happy and fulfilled, and their level of mental fulfillment and freedom is something you'd want to be around. And so it's I think it's important to get curious about what's what is health, what is mental health, and how does that link with how does the mind and the body link together. And what's interesting is how most people, how that's getting approached. So in a business context, for example, most of this conversation is approached within creativity and innovation. So we know things are changing faster than ever before, and that your ability to navigate the unknown, to make decisions to navigate uncertainty, ambiguity, and still lead with confidence and direction and clarity is, the hallmarks of success in the current, in the current business world, in entrepreneurship, etc., etc. So how you get there, right, is often by clearing up and looking at like what's blocking you emotionally, psychologically, by establishing, and in business, if there's no psychological safety, if people are coming to work stressed, if people are worried about losing their jobs, if they don't trust their leaders, if they don't trust their colleagues, if they can't be open with people, well, how are you going to innovate? And so you then come into this mental health and mental performance question because people want a result of innovation, and that leads in, and then if they want that result, then they don't care how you go and deliver that. So then you can like create these situations where like insight and conversation can happen, and you can start to like move things forward and look to all of this. Now there's a lot happening at the moment around, in business, in the corporate world. There's a lot happening. So there's like people are doing mindfulness, and there's people are looking at like the quality of sleep, like, and all this is absolutely fantastic. And like it's the things that impact your quality. It's like, well, go to bed at 10 o'clock. But if you're stressed out about like whether you're going to have your job next week, or you've got like fundamental trust issues within an organization, then like that's the issue that's stopping people to get sleep, or to get the appropriate sort of rest, and be in a frame or have a stance to come to work and perform effectively, right?
Certainly, yeah. I love what you're speaking about, because you're really speaking about how to take that change within yourself, and you're speaking about within the business world of, people are, there's so much going on, as you're saying, and there's so many different ways in which people can reach that high performance. And you spoke a little bit about, some people can be regular and have kind of that normal life, and as you're saying, there's still this stuff on top. And I want to know, when and to share with my audience especially, is when you're working with some of your clients, how are you able to bring an unconventional human to a high performance leader? So talk us through kind of that change of you working within somebody to try to make this mental shift, as you're speaking about, within, these leaders, these managers, these workers within our industry today.
Okay, so the simple answer from that is it depends. But what I have are frameworks that I've designed and created that look at like a holistic map of um, of the mind from a like personal and multi-intelligence point of view. So you have your how you've developed your capacities and performance along 18 different areas of intelligence, from the natural intelligence, your connection to nature, to emotional intelligence, how you express moods or how you're affected by moods, to how in tune you are with emotions, or how well you're able to transform like emotions that can be destructive, and turn that into, turn stress into creativity, right? um, and then once that's mapped out and people see their own, effectively like see their own like cognition and mind, you get very clear about what's in the way, and move them people through a guided step-by-step process, looking at what's sort of holding you back on an emotional and psychological level, and then the pragmatic practical improvements that you need to make, while then like sort of finishing off each intelligence. Say if we're going through physical intelligence, and you say, well, I should be working out and I'm not doing it, or I feel like I want this more muscle, more strength in my shoulders, and I want to develop that. So the end of that process is then creating a commitment to a standard, and then you will go through as development and coaching continues to say, well, how are you, leadership is effectively is about creating standards and then maintaining them. And then it might also shift in terms of those standards and the results that people are going for. So what I find often is that when you get the right vision with the right amount of tension on it, that kind of leads to a certain amount of action. So for example, you can go for like running a triathlon, right? Or you can go for winning a triathlon. And if you set your bar to winning a triathlon, the way you start to show up for yourself, the way you start to train has a completely different mentality to just, I'm going to go and run one. To be the, the number one company in your field has a different mentality to just being profitable. And so it's often in making these often very micro distinctions that the difference, that 1% difference between elite performers and everybody else is made.
Which in before they make this step, which in before they become a high performance leader, many of them maybe still have some of these goals, some of these visions, as you're saying, but they don't reach them. They don't maybe know those steps to take to reach that level. Within who you've worked with, within what you know today, at what point do most humans quit on their goals? And do you really know why this is the case?
At what point do most humans quit on their goals? So, I mean, I would, if we're talking about general population, I would say most humans quit on their goals before they've even started. I mean, most people, in my view, don't really know what they truly and really want and what they're willing to be committed to, in terms of their heart's desire and the greatest life that is possible for them.
Mm-hmm.
So how you tell that, so first I think it's important to clarify that quitting can be a really good thing, okay? And in fact, I advocate people quitting on everything that isn't their like deepest drive and internal motivation for what they most love to create in their life. Quit everything. So quitting, there's this idea that winners don't quit and quitters don't win. But that often leads to people like pushing themselves relentlessly beyond sort of capacities and ending up as a kind of lone wolf figure with at the pinnacle of achievement but deep down actually kind of miserable. Okay. And so, because for me, like success and goals is about a vision of place to come from rather than a place to get to. And in coming from that place, it's coming from love, it's coming from joy, it's coming from effectiveness, it's coming from clarity, it's coming from all of these things. And how you tell is, it's very simple to observe people and observe how people talk. When people are speaking to you, do they say they will do something? And when they say they will do something, do they do it or not? Do they walk in a way that suggests someone who is living an exceptional life full of joy and magic and miracles and wonder and appreciation and gratitude? Or do they walk in a way that suggests complaining, mediocrity, etc., etc., etc.? Right? This isn't difficult to ascertain when you spend time with people.
Certainly. And within this mindset, it brings about, this aspect of when you're quitting on your goals, you're saying there is good to it. And as you were saying, winners don't quit, quitters never win, and how that kind of contextualizes what people see as possible and what people see as impossible. Within, this realm of a mindset, how are you able to work with somebody to expand their own consciousness to see that impossible as possible, to not see kind of limits. And as you were saying, you need to set the bar high. So how were you able to work with somebody to expand their limits from a narrow point to a more broader approach of what their possibilities are?
So in an optimal situation, my favorite tool of questioning is to simply ask people, like, take me to the future. Take me to where imagine that we're having a conversation a year from now. And in the space of that 12 months, everything that you could have imagined that you've created and more is here. Tell me about that. Now, so for a lot of the high level visionary leaders that I work with, that's very easy for them to do. And then from there, you start to, you see the person who you would have to be in order for all of that to have happened. And then your effective work is closing that gap between the version of yourself that you are now and the one that pulled all of that off. So people who are less able to go into that state and really tap into their creativity and imagining in that way, then we go through a process of basically like clearing out the mental gunk and the mental impurities, and go through that in a step-by-step way that basically looks at all the mind stuff that gets in the way of them making effective high performance decisions.
Thank you for that. And I think that really gives a good glimpse as to what mental software is, what the possibilities are for someone to take that transition from, as you're saying, these high performance leaders trying to reach that peak performance. So I'd love to thank you all for listening to this first part of episode 4 with Anthony Ogley, and we will transition through the next episode to why mental architecture will be used in the future instead of mental health. So be sure to tune in to the next episode, and thank you for listening to part 1 of episode 4 of the Mental Insights podcast. Thank you all for listening to this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and review to this podcast. Let us know what you learned from this episode and what you would like to hear in the next episode. This has been your host, Brennan Catuli of the Mental Insights podcast. Have a wonderful day.